I want you to imagine something for a second. You wake up early, the house is freezing, and you look out your window.
Yeah.
And it is just this perfectly quiet, beautiful morning snowfall.
Yeah.
So you grab your phone, maybe a cup of coffee, and you step out onto your porch to film the flakes.
Like anyone would, right?
Right, exactly. And they look almost pink in the morning light. It is gorgeous. It is the kind of thing you just immediately post online.
Oh, absolutely. It is a completely mundane, almost comforting experience. We are socially conditioned to find that first snow of the season magical.
Yeah, which makes it the perfect camouflage. Because you are entirely, blissfully unaware that those beautiful pink flakes landing on your skin are actually a death sentence.
It really is a profound betrayal of nature.
It is. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are looking at the classified timeline of the Frost Hollow incident, trying to understand how an entire functioning mountain town was just quietly wiped off the map. We have this massive collection of recovered medical logs, military communications, and survivor journals. And they document an industrial cover-up, a biological anomaly, and just a rapid collapse of this community.
The documents are really chilling.
They are. And honestly, the sheer velocity at which Frost Hollow goes from a normal town to a ghost town overrun by something unspeakable is, I mean, it's hard to wrap my head around. It feels impossibly fast.
Well, that speed is actually a deceptive illusion because when we look at the historical data of catastrophic events, the most terrifying disasters rarely start with, a sudden monster kicking down the door.
Right.
They usually begin with a deliberate, calculated human mistake, a risk that goes horribly wrong, followed by a frantic bureaucratic attempt to sweep it under the rug. The collapse of Frost Hollow didn't begin with the snowfall.
No.
It began with a cover-up.
Yeah, so to understand how the town fell, we have to look at the inciting incident at the Black Vein mining site up on Griever's Ridge. 3 days before that pink snow even started falling, an explosion tore through the mine with enough concussive force to literally shatter windows 15 miles away down in the valley.
15 miles. That is massive.
Huge. And the authorities, they immediately mobilized a narrative to contain the panic.
Yeah, they pushed out an official statement claiming the miners had simply hit a massive pocket of methane gas.
Right, a tragic accident.
Exactly. They reported 21 casualties underground, but then, within hours, military vehicles rolled in and completely sealed off the upper mountain roads, a total and absolute lockdown of the area.
Which is wild for a simple gas leak. And that military lockdown created this bizarre psychological bubble for the town.
It did.
So 3 days later, the snowfall begins. Like I said, it starts off looking pink at dawn. The children of Frost Hollow were running outside, laughing, actually trying to catch these strange snowflakes on their tongues.
Parents are filming it.
Yeah. By noon, the snow turns darker, blanketing the rooftops and the forests in a deep, dark crimson.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I have to push back on human nature here for a second.
Sure.
You have a massive explosion at a mining site. 3 days later, the snow turns blood red. Why wouldn't people immediately connect those two dots, grab their kids, and evacuate?
What's fascinating here is the psychological environment the authorities manufactured.
Oh, you mean the roadblocks?
Exactly. The military roadblocks and the official statements about methane gas created a completely false sense of security. When the military rolls in with heavy equipment, the subconscious message to the public is, the situation is contained. The adults are handling it.
So it made the town feel managed.
Yes.
Just like how we react to pollution. You know those incredibly beautiful, vibrant purple and red sunsets you sometimes see in highly polluted cities?
Oh, right, yeah. We take pictures of them. We romanticize the very toxic smog that is actively poisoning our lungs. I think human beings have this fatal flaw where if something looks novel or beautiful, we just assume it's harmless.
That is a perfect analogy. The residents just couldn't conceptualize that the true environmental threat had bypassed the physical military barricades entirely.
Because it was airborne.
Right. They thought the danger was locked way up on the mountain. They didn't realize it was floating on the wind and quietly taking root on their own rooftops.
And the environmental red flags were glaring once you knew what to look for.
Oh, absolutely.
Almost immediately after the snow changes color, the animals vanish.
Yeah.
First, the local dykes disappear from their yards, then the larger livestock. Hunters who went out into the nearby woods to investigate found massive blood trails in the untouched red snow.
But no bodies.
Exactly, no bodies at the end of the trails. And there were no tracks returning. The drag marks just ended abruptly, directly beneath the tree canopy.
Like whatever was dragging them just went straight up.
Just straight up into the trees. And then the auditory anomalies followed shortly after.
Right, the scratching.
Yeah. After midnight, the residents of Frost Hollow began hearing slow, scraping sounds moving across the rooftops. Claws dragging across wood and metal, accompanied by heavy, wet breathing that would stop directly over their bedrooms.
Terrifying.
So a resident named Daniel Harper, he actually goes outside at 2:1 a.m. when he hears the scratching over his 12-year-old daughter Mia's ceiling.
Right.
He grabs a flashlight, steps into the freezing fog, and shines his light on the neighbor's roof. And he sees something crouched up there.
Something that shouldn't be there.
No, it's large, it's impossibly thin, and beneath the falling snow, he thinks it looks almost human.
Until it moves.
Right, until it stands up. It unfolds upward, and his limbs bend backward with these sharp cracking noises, and then it just vanishes across the rooftops with terrifying speed.
The biological mechanics of that movement are crucial to understanding what the town was dealing with.
The cracking joints.
Yeah. Limbs bending backward with cracking sounds indicate that the pathogen is rapidly dissolving calcified bone and replacing joint structures with highly flexible, high-tensile organic fibers.
Wow.
It was literally reverse engineering the human skeletal system for arboreal movement, to climb trees and roofs.
That is so deeply unsettling. And the next morning, Daniel's neighbor, Mrs. Grayson, is completely gone.
Yeah.
The police find blood on her porch, and they find that deep crimson snow packed tightly inside her mouth.
Which is horrifying.
Yeah, because once those spores settled on the rooftops and the ground, it was only a matter of hours before the residents started breathing them in. And we see the horrific results of that internal exposure when we look at the hospital records.
Right. By the end of the week, the medical facility was completely overwhelmed.
Yeah, people who had spent time outdoors in the crimson snow developed violent, agonizing coughing fits.
And the doctors initially treated it as chemical contamination, assuming it was fallout from the mine explosion.
But chemical fallout doesn't cause a patient to cough up black mucus threaded with tiny, moving red fibers that look like roots.
No, definitely not.
When they took x-rays of the patient's chests, they didn't see fluid or standard pneumonia. They saw massive, branching growths spreading throughout the lungs, and the growths were actively moving.
Yeah, and the true biological reality of the crimson infection reveals itself during an emergency surgery performed by Dr. Evelyn Cross.
Right, she was operating on a miner named Isaac Reed, who had been pulled from the rubble of the explosion.
He arrived at the hospital completely delirious, running a massive fever, and had been coughing up blood nonstop for 2 full days.
So Dr. Cross puts him under anesthesia and opens his chest cavity. Her surgical notes are incredibly vivid here. She basically freezes in her tracks because his lungs are gone.
Completely gone.
They have been entirely replaced by masses of crimson fungal tissue. They are pulsing slowly like breathing organs. Thin, root-like strands that spread all through his veins and are tightly wrapped around his heart.
And what Dr. Cross observes next fundamentally redefines our understanding of infectious behavior.
The scalpel, right.
Yes. The fungal tissue actively and intentionally moves toward her scalpel.
Wow.
It recognizes a physical threat to its host environment and attempts to defend itself.
And then Isaac wakes up, despite being under heavy anesthesia. Blood is spilling from his mouth, and he whispers, "They're growing. They're learning us."
Horrifying.
Something crawls beneath the skin of his throat, his body violently convulses, and his chest literally splits open. A massive cloud of spores bursts out of his chest cavity, instantly infecting 3 nurses in the operating room.
Just an immediate biological explosion.
Yeah. Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Reading this, it reminded me of like a malicious AI hacking a smart home network.
Oh, that is a highly accurate framework for understanding its mechanism.
Right, because a conventional virus is like a biological sledgehammer. It blindly replicates, smashing the cellular structure until the host dies.
Exactly. But this pathogen operates like a sophisticated adaptive algorithm.
It doesn't destroy the smart home. It rewires the electrical system.
Yeah.
It learns the homeowner's daily routines, locks the smart doors so you can't escape, and uses the home's own security cameras to watch for intruders.
Like attacking the scalpel.
Exactly. That's what this fungus was doing to Isaac's body. It wasn't destroying his lungs. It was replacing his anatomy with its own architecture. And it used the body's defenses to protect its new territory.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it possesses intentionality, a collective intelligence.
Yeah.
The mycelial network acts almost like a neural net. It bypasses the human immune system entirely by fundamentally re-engineering the host. It evicts the human biology and moves its own ecosystem in, utilizing the human shell as a mobile vehicle for further distribution.
So discovering a pathogen with a collective intelligence begs a terrifying question.
Right.
Where on earth did this come from, and how did it get out of the mountain?
Right.
The answer lies in classified mining documents that Dr. Cross actually managed to steal from the Quarantine Command Center after the military sealed the hospital.
Yeah, those documents expose the reality of what the black vein mining site actually was.
Because they were not extracting minerals beneath Griever's Ridge.
No. Deep underground, the excavation teams had breached a miles-wide ancient cavern.
A cavern entirely filled with gigantic living fungal structures attached to the stone walls like massive breathing organs.
Incredible.
And the miners had found bodies deep inside. Thousands of bodies completely fused into the red fungal growth. And some of them were still alive.
Which means the heavy breathing echoing through the tunnels that the workers reported before the incident makes perfect sense in this context.
Oh my God, yeah.
The entire cavern was a single, interconnected, breathing organism, which completely recontextualizes the massive explosion that started this entire timeline.
Exactly. The blast that shook the town was absolutely not a methane accident. The mining company deliberately detonated high-yield explosive charges because their workers had started disappearing underground.
Taken by the fungus.
Yes. They tried to bury the cavern. They tried to blow the problem to pieces to cover it up.
A catastrophic error rooted in humanity's core assumption of dominance over the natural world.
Right.
They applied a blunt, industrial solution to a highly adaptable biological entity. You cannot destroy a microscopic, spore-based organism with concussive force. You only agitate and disperse it.
So what does this all mean? The hubris just makes my blood boil.
Whoa.
In their attempt to cover up a subterranean nightmare, the mining company literally became the ultimate delivery mechanism.
Yeah, they did.
By detonating those explosives, they created a massive thermal updraft. They took a contained underground ecosystem, blew the mature fungal fruiting bodies into microscopic pieces, and launched those spores straight into the stratosphere.
They weaponized it.
They turned it into an airborne apocalypse that seeded the storm clouds and rained down on the town as pink snow.
This raises an important question about our environment. The explosion shifted the paradigm entirely.
How so?
While the mountain was no longer a physical stationary location to be mined, it became fluid. The blast ensured that the mountain itself was actively spreading outward.
Wow. And that spreading mountain inevitably reaches inside the homes of Frost Hollow. As the military enforces an absolute communication blackout quarantine, we see the micro-level intimate tragedy of the town's assimilation.
The psychological warfare waged by the infection during these final days is devastatingly effective.
It is. We go back to 12-year-old Mia Harper. It's a stormy night, snow is falling, and Mia hears voices outside her bedroom window. She hears the voices of children whispering softly over the wind, saying, "Open the window, please. We're cold."
Just heartbreaking.
So she feels pity and steps toward the glass. But the spatial orientation of the voices is what stops her.
Right, because the voices aren't coming from the ground below the window. The entity speaking is clinging upside down to the exterior siding, positioned directly above the window frame.
Her father, Daniel, rushes in just in time to see long, pale fingers slide upward out of view, leaving deep claw marks gouged into the frozen glass. This is the detail I cannot stop thinking about. The infected creatures retain human voices. They use the sound of pleading, freezing children to trick their loved ones into opening the door. How is that biologically possible? I mean, how does a fungus mimic a child?
Well, the pathogen is essentially using the human body as a biological synthesizer.
A synthesizer.
Exactly. By wrapping its root structures around the victim's vocal cords and physically forcing air through the modified respiratory tract, the fungus can perfectly replicate the last sounds the host made before total assimilation.
That is sickening.
It is an evolutionary tactic designed to weaponize human empathy. Your brain is hardwired to help a crying child, making you entirely vulnerable to the deception.
It's an unstoppable manipulation. And the tragedy was already in motion for the Harper family because Mia had been exposed to the snow days earlier.
Right.
She starts coughing up blood the next morning. By nightfall, she is standing completely silent by her bedroom window, just staring out at the dark mountains. Her father touches her shoulder, and her skin is burning with an impossibly high fever. But she doesn't turn around. She just whispers, "They're calling us home."
We are observing the true biological goal of the pathogen here, which is total assimilation. The infection isn't merely hijacking the physical form, it is actively absorbing human consciousness.
And Daniel actually hears a cracking noise coming from inside her chest and sees things moving rapidly beneath his daughter's skin. The fungal architecture is taking over.
Yeah.
When the town finally collapses in the days following, the records note a very specific, chilling detail. The infected residents wander out of their homes and walk directly into the freezing snowstorms, but they are smiling blankly.
Because they no longer feel the cold. The expanding fungal network severs the host's pain receptors. That blank smile signifies the complete erasure of the individual. They have been absorbed. They are now just sensory extensions of a larger, terrifying whole, answering the biological imperative to return to the central network.
It's a total systemic collapse. I mean, even the heavily armed military units that were sent into Frost Hollow to enforce the quarantine, they simply vanish into the snow.
Completely overrun.
They stop responding to radio calls within days. The final transmission from the town reaches a neighboring county at 3:44 a.m. during a massive blizzard. It's an emergency operator, completely terrified, screaming over the radio static.
Yeah, the operator screams, "Don't breathe the snow!" before the transmission is abruptly overwhelmed by those same scraping, scratching sounds and the heavy, wet breathing we saw on the rooftops.
Right. And then the radio picks up one final sentence. But it's not the operator. It is multiple voices whispering perfectly in unison over the radio.
We're underneath you now.
Exactly. And the signal cuts to dead air.
A horrifying confirmation that the collective intelligence had fully realized its expansion through the town.
So, 6 months later, the authorities officially declared Frost Hollow completely abandoned. 0 survivors were ever recovered from the town or the surrounding forests. But the present-day reality is arguably even more disturbing than the history.
Definitely.
Satellite images taken during the winter months still show this massive, strange red growth slowly creeping further and further across Griever's Ridge.
Containment failed completely. When the mechanism of delivery is atmospheric, borders and military barricades are entirely useless.
Yeah, nearby towns are reporting that every few years, during particularly cold storms, they experience brief flurries of crimson snowfall. Medical professionals in those areas issue strict, urgent warnings to the public. They say never, under any circumstances, touch the red snow.
Because when doctors put those crimson flakes under a microscope, they are visibly alive.
Yes, they are moving and growing.
The microscopic flakes are explicitly described in the medical notes as actively searching for somewhere warm to root.
I want you to really think about that. If these microscopic, intelligent spores are riding the winter winds for miles, actively searching for warmth,
Right?
what happens when someone unknowingly tracks that snow on the bottom of their boot into a heated car, or into an international airport, or onto a crowded, perfectly warm subway car during rush hour?
It's just a matter of time.
The next time you see a strange, reddish speck of dust moving in the air near a space heater, you have to ask yourself, is it just the breeze playing tricks on your eyes, or is it looking for a home?
Such a terrifying thought. We want to thank you for joining us as we explored the harrowing records of Frost Hollow. Stay warm out there.
And stay safe. Thanks for listening.